my honourable friend for his question. First of all, Mr. Speaker, I will not get into any speculation and commentary, but when it comes to the government's position on foreign national offenders, I could not be any clearer. Our policy is as stated: if you abuse our hospitality and commit crimes in the UK, we will do everything in our power to remove you, and that has been the focus of this government. And I'm also clear that tougher action is needed to speed up removals to deter foreign criminals from entering the UK. So it's not always easy. There are barriers to overcome, and that, of course, Mr. Speaker, is something that we will be looking at through other legislative means.
Mr. Carmichael.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I, both for myself and for my party, add my voice to the expressions of sympathy for all those whose lives were touched by this dreadful incident, and in particular condolences to all those who mourn the loss of a loved one. Mr. Speaker, 3 months after I was first elected to this House in 2001, we saw the horrific events in New York and Washington on 9/11. That was followed by emergency anti-terror legislation. I struggle to think of a year since where we haven't had anti-terror legislation of some sort, but still the problem continues. I think we can be fairly certain that if the answer to this problem were to be found in a formulation of the law, we would have found it by now. So can I say to the Home Secretary, as she considers the formulation of a new counter-terror and counter-extremism strategy, we need to have the involvement of people who do not have any skin in the game, who in the nicest way possible have been part of the failure that has taken us to this part. And in particular, can that strategy be informed by an honest assessment of what it is going to do to end the radicalisation of those who find themselves within prisons?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My Russian friend is absolutely right in terms of the need for objectivity and understanding in terms of how we formulate these strategies, which are often evolving, they are dynamic, they look at the behaviours of individuals, many of the behaviours that we ourselves simply do not understand. And de-radicalisation is a complicated issue. So he's absolutely right. There are many, and not just specific to what has happened in Reading over the weekend, but more broadly, it is right that we look at the whole approach holistically, understand failures of the past, what has worked in the past, but ensure that we have a comprehensive approach that really builds on constructive insights and learnings. And the Honourable Gentleman is absolutely right in his own assessment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yet another terrorist attack. I join with the Home Secretary in praising the first responders and those individuals that had no concern for their own lives to close this incident down. And I'm pleased to hear the initiatives that are being put forward in our probation service, in our communities, in our prisons. But we need to understand the wider picture that terrorism is increasing. At the time of the Bali bombing, there were 26 prescribed organisations by the Home Office. That number has risen to 86, which you concede that it isn't just a problem for the UK, but we need to look wider afield. The reasons why these things are happening is because there are fanatics working in ungoverned spaces, preying on vulnerable individuals, promoting a false interpretation of Islam. We pat ourselves on the back to say we defeated Daesh, but that's only territorially. That ideology lives on and continues to grow. The threat is there. And until we address this wider picture, the threat of terrorism in the UK will continue.
Fred is absolutely right about the threat, the real threat, the present danger of extremist ideologies. And of course, extremist ideologies they manifest in many, many forms. And we all recognise that, and we see that internationally. As I've already said, Mr. Speaker, we see that online, we see that through individuals that are networked. And of course, we cannot tackle these issues on our own. And that is why our work internationally with the Five Eyes communities and many other international partners are so valid. We have to continue to grow the work that we do, learn from each other, grow our own intelligence networks, but importantly, understand the tactics and techniques that can make a difference in this space.